Good morning to one and all present here. My name is Adit Narayan, a fourth-year law student of this institution, and I shall be serving as a compeer for today's guest lecture. Before we start the program, I would like to call upon Anantharaman of third year BCom LLB to invoke the blessings of the Almighty.
Maitrim bhajata akila hrijetri Maitrim bhajata akila hrijetri Maitrim bhajata akila hrijetri Atmavadev paranapi pashyata Atmavadev paranapi pashyata Yudham tyajata spardham tyajata Yudham tyajata spardham tyajata Tyajata pareshva kramamakramanam Tyajata pareshva kramamakramanam Maitrim bhajata akila hrijetrim Jananim prithvi kamadugaste Jananim prithvi kamadugaste Janako devaha sakala dayalu Janako devaha sakala dayalu Dhamyata data dayatvam janata Dhamyata data dayatvam janata Shreyo bhuyat sakala jananam Shreyo bhuyat sakala jananam Shreyo bhuyat sakala jananam Shreyo bhuyat sakala jananam Shreyo bhuyat sakala jananam
Thank you, Anantharaman. Now, I would like to call upon Amrit Bhargav, third year BA LLB, to introduce today's guest of honor, Justice Sri Ravi Ramasubramaniam, Judge, High Court of Madras, and to deliver the welcome address.
It gives me immense happiness that today I am going to introduce to you a Hercules judge. A Hercules judge in the sense that Justice Ramasubramaniam is not only a judge, but I, with trepidation, have to introduce to you a great legal scholar, an author, a great orator in both English and in Tamil, and above all, a dispenser of justice. Justice Ramasubramaniam was born on 30th June 1958 and studied his undergraduation at the Vivekananda College in Madras, his BSc degree, and later went on to do his law at the Madras Law College, and was enrolled at the bar in 1983 and began practice under two of the giants of the Madras bar, M.C. Sarvabhauman and T.R. Mani, senior advocates. He was elevated to the High Court bench in 2006 and was made permanent. After his elevation as a judge, all that we could say was na bhuto na bhavishyati. There can only be one Justice Ramasubramaniam. Who can forget, your lordship, your judgments and the case law which abounds as a guiding light for all of us. Your judgment in Colgate Palm Olive India, which happens to be an omnibus in advertising law. And my favorite, my lord, is your judgment in Dorothy Thomas versus Rex Arul about the enforceability of foreign matrimonial decrees in a country where private international law is not much studied and that we don't have many books on private international law. Your judgment, especially the point relating to the High Court when exercising its jurisdiction on one side under the CPC cannot exercise jurisdiction on the other side, was indeed significant. Your judgment in Madras Race Club versus Victor about the ousting of the civil court jurisdiction in labor matters also serves as a beacon for many lawyers and law students. Justice Ramasubramaniam is, as I said, not a judge in the traditional sense of the term. His Tamil oration and his oratorical skill are legendary, and there is a sweet resonance in the way he talks. And I heard, my Lord, for the first time when you spoke on Appaya Dikshita in the Mayavaram Dharmagnya Ramanatha Dikshitar centenary lecture, where you shared the stage with equally eminent men, including the former Chief Election Commissioner and Gopalaswamy, the thought leader as Gurumurthy, and it was a trinity which sat that day to deliver a string of lectures which we all still remember. Your soul-stirring talk on the release of S.P. Chokkalingam's Prabala Kolai Vazhakkugal cannot be forgotten. And I remember a very significant phrase that you employed the other day, that இந்தியர்கள் போர் வரலாறு இருந்தவர்களும் யாரும் கிடையாது, இந்தியர்கள் போல் வரலாற்றை பதிவு செய்ய மறந்தவர்களும் யாரும் கிடையாது. That is something that all of us have to remember. And the interest in the Bhoval Sannyasi case, which I was sharing with your Lordship, is something that came to me only after I listened to your speeches on the net. And my Lord, we are indeed happy today to have you on a book that you have written, Sattamum Kambaramayanamum. And your Lordship, today's topic, Tol Kandar, Tole Kandar, Thodukkalal Kamalamanna, Tal Kandar, Tale Kandar, Tadakkai Kandarum, Atte, Val Kanda Kannariyare, Vadivenai Mudiyak Kandar, thank you, sir. Vadivenai Mudiyak Kandar, I'm extremely sorry. I think I've Ool Kanda Samayathu Annan Mudivinai Udivu Kandarai Ottar. I'm extremely sorry. My poor Tamil, you should all apologize. I should apologize. You should all forgive me. But I have a sense of dwarfness, I think, which has overtaken me when I wanted to give this. And with no further ado, I would invite to hear years of elevating experience of legal scholarship. And before all that, let me also welcome senior advocates Sri N. Venkatraman, who is not new to the Sastra family, and also the Assistant Solicitor General for India, the Southern States, Sri G.R. Swaminathan, who was kind enough to be with us today. I present before you Justice Ramasubramanian.
Thank you, Amrit. Now I invite our beloved head of the department, School of Law, Shastra University, to present the guest of honor a small memento as a token of appreciation. Thank you, sir. Now I invite today's guest of honor, Shri Justice Ramasubramanian, to deliver the Knowledge Leadership Forum lecture on traces of modern jurisprudence in Kambaramayanam. Welcome you, sir.
Respected Chancellor of Shastra University, the Dean, members of the Faculty of Studies, distinguished invitees, dear students. After a very, very long interval of time, I think this is my first visit to Shastra University, and I have been evading whenever a request was made by Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam for a variety of reasons. But after visiting this campus, the first impression that I got was that how I missed an opportunity to be born in your age to be a student of Shastra University. I would request all of you, this is not a statement which is made for the purpose of pleasing persons who have invited me to deliver a lecture. This is a statement which you can take it as a confession statement of a judge. If you want to verify whether what I said was true or false, I would request you, as a measure of reciprocal arrangement, to visit the college which I studied, namely the Madras Law College. You will realize that what I said about Shastra is not an underestimate. I am really happy to see that a young generation of lawyers, budding lawyers, have the opportunity to study in one of the state-of-the-art universities in the whole of the country. I request you to make the best use of this opportunity to become great lawyers. Today, you all must have heard and seen from the newspapers that the profession of law is at crossroads. If we have to redeem this profession, it requires a lot of blood transfusion, and it is only the transfusion of the blood of youngsters like you which I think can redeem the profession from its present status. The lawyers of yesteryears, pre-independence days, could be divided into two categories. Lawyers who actually sacrificed their family life, personal life, health, wealth, everything for the liberation of this country from the foreign rulers. There were yet another type of lawyers who did not care to participate in the freedom struggle, but who built an empire by themselves, empire in their own right in the legal profession, amassed a lot of wealth, but built institutions which would help generations of youngsters in the post-independent era of this country. This is how two types of lawyers emerged. You must know that when one of the greatest lawyers, Vavu Chidambaram Pillai, spent 4 years in jail, his sanat was cancelled. He returned a pauper. He opened a provision store in Perambur from where he died in poverty. When he died in poverty, Vavu Chidambaram wrote a very interesting poem. I do not know how many of you can understand Tamil. First of all, I should tell you that my speech, by its very nature, has to be bilingual. I can't really make my speech fully in English. If anyone cannot understand Tamil, please show up your hands. People who can't understand Tamil. Okay, there are very few people, it's all right. Though I respect the rights of the minorities in the literal sense of the term, I think you should respect my right to go bilingual because of the very nature of the topic I have chosen. Vavu Chidambaram wrote a very interesting poem. He was a lawyer who made a lot of money, who was a very wealthy man, who inherited a lot of wealth. He started a Swadeshi steam navigation company, but he died in penury, and he wrote, வந்த கவிஞர்க்கெல்லாம் மாரியன பல்பொருளும் தந்த சிதம்பரம் தாழ்ந்தின்று வெண்பாச் சொல்லி பிச்சை கேட்கிறான் நாளும் நாளும் தோலும் மலிந்து என்று சொன்னார். I am now begging for my survival is what Vavu Chidambaram said at the end of the day. Therefore, one type of lawyers of the pre-independence days sacrificed health, everything for the sake of the country, for liberating this country from the foreign rulers. There were yet another type of lawyers who did not participate in the freedom struggle, but who amassed wealth and spent all the wealth that they had earned only for building institutions which will create generations of youngsters from this country. These two examples I would request all you youngsters to keep in mind, so that when you get into society as lawyers, you will know the kind of role that you are supposed to play in society. With this prelude, let me get back to the topic that I have been assigned. The topic that I have chosen for discussion is Traces of Modern Jurisprudence in Kambaramayanam. Before I get into this topic, I I should tell you what Kamba Ramayanam is. Kamban was one of the greatest poets of all time in the annals of Tamil history. He was born in the 9th century. That's how, see, as the person who introduced me said, I always used to say Indians were great in creating history, but very poor in recording history. Therefore, what happened was, most of our history was written by people with a lot of vested interests and the Westerners who wanted to denounce India, denounce whatever was Indian. Therefore, unfortunately, the kind of historical recordings that we have today are not a reflection of the true status of what India was. Therefore, there is a debate as to the period during which poet Kamban lived. Let us keep that aside. We are not concerned about his date of birth. We are not going to celebrate his birth anniversary. And if somebody was great, it is better not to celebrate birth anniversaries because we forget what they said and we go by what they were. This poet Kamban of the 9th century, there is an interesting background to how he wrote Ramayana. He was a poet in the court of a king. And Kamban was a contemporary of two other great poets by name Vattakuttan and Pugalenthi. Pugalenthi was the person who wrote Nalavenba. You must have heard about Nalavenba. Venba Puli was the title given to Pugalenthi. You know, people today, when we talk about automobiles, when we talk about aeronautics, and when we say Indians were great, some people ridicule, saying all that was nonsense. But in Pugalenthi's Nalavenba, there is a particular phrase. The king goes by his chariot, goes by the car, no, the chariot. The towel that he was having, Angavastra that he was having, it falls down. He asks his driver to stop the car, stop the chariot on the ground that his Angavastra had fallen down. The driver replies, my God, we have crossed 400 kilometers. மேலாடை விழுந்ததென்றான் அதற்குள் 4 காதம் கடந்ததென்றான். So that was the kind of, therefore we had rash and negligent drivers even in those days. That is another type of lesson that we are entitled to learn. After all, events are events, and the lessons that we draw from them are left to our own individuality. When the king ordained both Kamban and Vattakuttan to write Ramayana, Kamban was a genius by birth, and all geniuses have an inherent deficiency, namely that they will not have promptitude. But see, there is some problem with logic. Geniuses are never known for disciplined life and promptitude. But the converse cannot be true. You cannot say, I am not disciplined, I have no problem with a genius. He is what should actually flow out of logic, but it does not. It is not true. After some time, king called both of them and asked them whether they had started composing Ramayana in Tamil. Vattakuttan was a strict disciplinarian. He had actually started writing. Therefore, he said, yes. Kamban was put to shame. Therefore, he said, yes, I have also started writing. He had not even opened his pen. But he told a lie to the king that he had started writing Ramayana. The king could have stopped. King was a very bad teacher. So he asked both of them, up to what portion have you composed? Then Vattakuttan said, I have composed up to the stage where the entire army of monkeys have arrived at the seashore to cross over to Sri Lanka. Then the king turned towards Kamban and asked him, what is the progress as far as you are concerned? Kamban said, I have come up to Kadal Tavu Padalam. Then the king got flabbergasted. He asked, Mr. Kamban, why don't you recite a poem from what you have written? Immediately, he was an Asukavi. He can compose poems spontaneously. Asukavi means a poet who is spontaneous. He immediately said a verse. குமுதனிட்ட குலவரை குத்தரில் திமிதமிட்டு திரியும் திரைக்கடல் துமி தம் ஊர்புக வானவர் துள்ளினார் அமுதம் இன்னும் எழும் எனும் ஆசையால். Kumudan was the name of a monkey. Don't ask me whether monkeys also had names. When we can have names, we do not know. The animal kingdom has its own rules and regulations. There was a monkey by name Kumudan. That Kumudan threw a huge stone into the water. You know, the moment you throw a stone, the water drops rise up. Some of the water drops which rose from the ocean reached the heaven. The meaning of that song. When these water drops reached the heaven, the devas there started celebrating that somebody is churning the milk of ocean once again. Therefore, we may get Amrita. We are going to get Amrita for a second time. They started celebrating. Kumuda nitta kulavarai kuttaril dimidhamittu thiriyum thiraikadal. The waves started dancing. Dimidhamittu thiriyum thiraikadal. Dumi tam urpuga. The water drop reached heaven. Vanavar tullinar amudam innum elum enum asayal. The moment Kamban said this song, the Vatakuthan stopped him. He said, "What did you say? Dumi. What does that word mean?" Kamban said, "Dumi means tuli, drop." Then Vatakuthan asked him, "How do you say, where from do you get that the word Dumi means tuli, drop? I have not come across the word Dumi in my entire life." Then Kamban said, spontaneously Kamban said, it is Vadakkuchol. Vadakkuchol means, see, you can put it like a slang. I mean, in different districts of Tamil Nadu, we have different versions of same Tamil words. They actually evolve over a period of time due to practice. It depends upon, it is a kind of, you can say it's a, I won't put it as dialect. I do not know how to put it actually. Vadakkuchol, what is the equivalent in English, sir? Huh? Usides. Okay, Usides. Okay. I didn't know that word. I would have used it for my Solveti in Dhanamani. Therefore, he said Dumi is a local equivalent, Uside will say it. But Vatakuthan would not agree. He said, demonstrate where from which part of the country you get that word, you get that slang. Kamban said, all right, I will take you tomorrow to a particular village and demonstrate that such a word is in use. Next day morning, when Kamban took the king and Vatakuthan to a particular place, it was a village. A lady was churning buttermilk to get butter out of the buttermilk. At that time, the child of that lady, it goes from behind and hugs the mother. The mother drives the child away, saying, more dumi telikum po. The drop of buttermilk may actually fall on you, get lost. When she said it, she uses the word dumi. Then Kamban told the king, look, this is from where I got it. There is a local usage for such a term. All of them came back. Vatakuthan was not convinced. He thought this is a setup. Somebody has set up something. Immediately he rushed. The entire scene had disappeared. Then Vatakuthan realized that who had actually acted like that old lady was Goddess Saraswati herself, and Kamban had started composing the poem with the blessings of Goddess Saraswati. The moment Vatakuthan realized this, whatever he had composed till that time, he threw into the waters and said, I am not competent, I am not equivalent to Kamban to compose Ramayanam. He abandoned it. You must know, Vatakuthan was no ordinary poet. I always used to tell the children, Vatakuthan was a great poet. The greatness of the poet could be understood by two songs which Vatakuthan and Pugadindi composed in competition with each other. Vattakutan called Pugalenthi and asked him, "Are you capable of composing a verse in Tamil in the same meter as I do, with the same meaning as I do?" Pugalenthi took upon himself the challenge. Vattakutan composed this song. He said, "Vikka vukka vitta vippoi vitta nattar suttur pukkar ikka yatta saipadutre itredi poi vaippi nirpir akkada pei tokkada chul appada ti veppada pun ekkada kanatada per naittanatanai chevitte." Then Pugalenthi was no ordinary poet. Immediately he said, "Oh, that's all. I can do it myself." He said, "Tarko lippu sarpa satte tarpamar sagekke nirpir murko likko lippu satte muttamar se vitte nirpir vatta netto daipare chel maippu gatte ritta vippoi nettalutra laipa girche naittanattane dhyanite." Students, you would have seen in a particular Tamil feature film somebody singing a song without actually taking a breath. It was not the first time that it happened. It was not an innovation by the poet of the 20th century. It was an innovation by Vattakutan. It was simply copied. Very unfortunately, intellectual property rights had not developed in those days for Vattakutan to come here and file a suit before me for infringement of the copyright. Therefore, this is how Kamban is said to have composed about 10,000 verses. There are controversies about how many verses he created, into which we need not go at this stage. I just gave you a prelude for you to understand the greatness of Kamban. It is my endeavor to introduce you to Kamban. The moment I introduce you, it is for you to develop friendship with him. I will go out of the way. That is the purpose of this lecture. Now coming to, it is an ocean. The Kamban's Ramayanam is an ocean. In my view, maybe it is a prejudiced view, but I think I am entitled to have such a prejudiced view. Today, nobody can say he is absolutely free of prejudices. And I think I am also entitled to certain prejudices. My view is that there is no equivalent to Kamban anywhere in the world. The kind of things that he had spoken about in his Ramayanam are completely unparalleled. I am now going to take you only to the principles of fundamental jurisprudence that could be traced in the poems composed by. Before getting into this traces of modern jurisprudence in his Ramayanam, you must understand one fundamental fact. The Vedas, according to our ancient Hindus, there were 14 branches of learning. These 14 branches of learning were actually called Chaturdasa Vidya. The 14 branches of learning, Chaturdasa Vidya, comprised of 4 Vedas, 6 Angas, and 4 Upa-Angas, 4 plus 6 plus 4. This Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharvana, 4 Vedas, then 6 Angas, Shadangas, they used to call it as Shadangas, 6 Angas, Siksha, Vyakarana, Chandas, Nrittam, Jyotish, Kalpam. 6 Angas. Then 4 Upa-Angas, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Purana, and Dharmasastras. The last of these 14 branches of learnings, which is called the Dharmasastras, were actually called Smritis. Dharmasastras were nothing but Smritis. These Smritis contained the code of conduct for men. You can call it a compendium of laws. If you would like to identify them in the modern terms, Dharmasastras, which is the 14th of the 14 branches of learning, could be called Corpus Juris Secundum. These smritis were actually compiled, not composed, they were compiled by 18 rishis. They were called Manu, Parasara, Yagyavalkya, Gautama, Harita, Yama, Vishnu, Sangha, Likita, Brihaspati, Daksha, Angirasa, Prachetasa, Samvarta, Achanasa, Atri, Apastamba, Satatapa. These 18 rishis individually compiled the smritis. Each one of them came to be known by their own names. The smritis compiled by Manu came to be known as Manusmritis. Smritis compiled by Yagyavalkya came to be known as Yagyavalkya Smriti. These two became the very famous Smritis of all times. These Smritis contain the fundamental principles of jurisprudence. Therefore, all the laws that evolved over a period of time till the advent of the Britishers into India in the 17th century, beginning of the 17th century, were primarily based upon these smritis. When the Britishers arrived here, they were very cautious not to touch upon, not to infringe into the religious affairs of the local population. That was a very conscious decision that the Britishers had taken so that their entitlement to rule over the masses become unquestionable. They knew that the moment they touched the religious lives of these people, people will revolt against them. For the first time in 1857, they crossed this Lakshman Rekha, which led to what you know in 1857 as Sipai Mutiny. For 250 years, Britishers maintained this Lakshman Rekha and then they survived. Therefore, up to that stage, up to the evolution of the English jurisprudence, what prevailed here were the laws codified by these 18 rishis, which came to be called the Smritis. When the Britishers started writing statutes for us, regulations for us, they absorbed some of these things into the English jurisprudence. I can tell you a very interesting example. All of you know that under section 107, 108 of the Indian Evidence Act, there is a presumption of death of a person if persons who are supposed to have heard about him have not heard about him or known him for 8 years. But if you see how this principle came into existence, how this principle got into the statute book in section 108 of the Indian Evidence Act, you would realize that Manu had a rule. Manusmriti contained a rule which says that if a person is not heard of by persons who are supposed to know him for about 8 years, there is a presumption of death. You can start doing his samskaras. That's what Manu says. Vasishta Smriti prescribes only a period of 5 years. Parasara prescribes a period of 7 years. Therefore, the lawmaker, when he drafted the Indian Evidence Act, he looked into all these smritis and took 8 years as the fundamental basis. I think 7 years. 7 years as the fundamental basis. Therefore, when the English jurisprudence developed after the 17th century, or most probably the 18th century, or the later part of the 19th century, they absorbed some of the principles that were enshrined in the Smritis. You just keep this in mind, and now let us go back in point of time to when Kamban lived in the 19th century. What happened was, Kamban absorbed some of these Manusmritis. Therefore, in various places, Kamban makes a reference to Manusmriti and the way justice is administered according to Manu. On top of that, Kamban also makes an interesting reference to all the 14 branches of learning in one of his verses. He says, when sun sets in a particular portion, Nagapasa Padalam, where Indrajit fires an arrow called Nagapasam, and Rama and Lakshmana fall upon the earth. Sunsets. While describing the sunset, Kamban says, Vazhiya Vedam Nangum Manu Mudal Vanda Noolum. This particular sentence refers to 14 branches of learning. Therefore, he also bases whatever he says about jurisprudence upon these smritis. There are various aspects. In fact, I divided my research into 22 chapters as to how principles of jurisprudence have been incorporated in Kambaramayanam. Interestingly, the first chapter which I wrote was Kamban and Black Robe. Today, we the lawyers wear black robe. Why do we wear black robe? The Britishers say that at the earliest point of time, when people attended the funeral of the wife of second Charles II, they came with black robes. Perhaps the Britishers thought that whoever came to court were coming to court for the purpose of mourning, if not the demise of justice. But we do not know. For whatever reasons, that became the dress code for the lawyers. Insofar as India is concerned, there is a special interest in the color black. Rama himself was black. Krishna was black. Therefore, whoever is black, they should take pride. What happened was, all of you know the god of death, Yama, is actually pictured as black in color. The color of Lord Yama is actually black. The reason, probably, the only psychological reason one can attribute to this is that if he comes in white color, at the time of death, people will easily find out, oh, Yama has come. If he comes in darkness, in black color, people can't find him. Maybe they will get cheated, or they may try to cheat him. I do not know the reason, but the god of death is also the god of dharma. He is actually called Yama Dharma Raja. The reason is that without fear or favor, Yama is the only person, the god of death is the only person who hands over to you the final judgment. As a judge, I may be favored by that always in mind, because he is a person who doesn't fear. Just look at these two examples. Traditionally, we have painted Lord Yama as the god of justice, and we have painted him black. Today, the phrase paint him in black has attained a different connotation. I am talking in the literal sense. Britishers gave black as the robe for persons who dispense justice, not persons who dispense with justice. The difference, you must understand, dispensing justice is different from dispensing with justice. The difficulty about this English is this. Today I find many judges writing that this child was born out of the wedlock. Supreme Court judgments, I find the child was born out of the wedlock, and the very allegation is adultery. And the judge, while rejecting the allegation, confirms it by his wrong English. Therefore, if you keep that in mind, just see what Kamban says. Vibhishana arrives seeking shelter at the feet of Lord Rama. For the first time, Vibhishana, the brother of Ravana, meets Rama. The spontaneous reaction of Vibhishana was portrayed by Kamban as follows. He says, Veeranai nokki, angam menmayir silirpa, kannir vara, nenju urugi, sengan anjanamalai andru agin, கார்முகில் கமலம் பூத்ததன்று இவன் கண்ணன் கொலாம் ஆறு அருள் சுரக்கும் நீதி அறநிறம் கரிதோ என்றான். ஆர் அருள் சுரக்கும் நீதி அறநிறம் கரிதோ என்றான். அருள் சுரக்கும் நீதியினுடைய நிறம் கருமையோ என்று வியந்தான். Justice which is tempered with mercy probably is black in color, is what Vibhishana said the moment he saw Rama. Therefore, Rama was seen by Vibhishana as an embodiment of justice tempered with mercy and compassion. That is probably the reason why Indians have also adopted black robe for lawyers. This was my first chapter. Then there are various other chapters into which we need not go into detail. But all of you know that justice is always symbolized by the balance, the scale. There is something interesting about this scale. It was Thiruvalluvar who said, Saman செய்து சீர்தூக்கும் கோல்போல் அமைந்து ஒருபால் கோடாமை சான்றோர்க்கு அணி. Impartiality is signified by the scale. That is what Valluvar said. In fact, in my book I have said Valluvar did not refer to dispensation of justice when he referred to scale. He only kept that verse in a chapter which is intended for the householder. He did not keep it for a chapter intended for the king who was dispensing justice. Let us keep that aside. Worldwide, dispensation of justice is identified by a scale. That lady carrying a scale, you must have seen. That scale is also something which Kamban adopts to signify dispensation of justice. But what is the kind of scale that Kamban, what is the kind of balance that Kamban adopts is something amazing for you to learn and understand. There are different types of balances in the world, scales in the world. How many of you have gone to Guruvayur temple? Yes, many of you have gone there. And you must have seen Tulabharam. Tulabharam is a large size scale. Human beings sit on one side and whatever they want to offer to God, they are kept in the other balance. In a scale of such a huge nature, there is always scope for approximation. If you want to give, if you weigh about 50 kgs, 60 kgs, and if you put coconuts on the other side of the balance, if it weighs 61 kgs, 60.5 kgs, 59.5 kgs, you allow that approximation to happen. Scales which are used to weigh huge objects of low value permit approximation. But scales which are used to weigh objects smaller in size but greater in value, there is no scope for approximation. People who have gone to the chemical laboratories would have come to know about this chemical balances. I was a student of chemistry myself. I have seen in my laboratory the chemical balance which should be kept in a vacuum. In fact, if you open it and if a small amount of air enters into that chemical balance, it will tilt the balance. That was the only thing I studied in chemistry. You must have gone to gold jewelry shops. In gold jewelry shops, the scales that they use do not allow of approximation. If they allow of approximation, either you will not go there or they will not be there. These are the two possibilities. This, if you keep that in mind, the difference between scales which are used to measure objects greater in size, smaller in value, and which are used to measure objects which are smaller in size, greater in value, if you keep that in mind, you look at what Kamban says. Dasaratha announces that Rama will be coronated on the next day. Then he goes to Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi turns upside down the entire fate of the country and banishes Rama into the forest. But before that happens, the moment Dasharatha announced the coronation of Rama, asks Vasishta to go to Rama and gives him a piece of advice. He tells Rama, Rama, you are going to get coronated tomorrow as the king of the country. What are you supposed to do? What are your duties? This is what Kamban writes as Vasishta having told Rama. Seelam allana niki sembun tulai talam anna taninilai tangiya ஞால மன்னவர் நல்லவர் நோக்கிய காலம் அல்லது கண்ணும் உண்டாகுமோ. Seelam allana niki, remove all that is bad, all that is not good. Sembun tulai talam anna taninilai tangiya, act like a scale, act like a balance which is used to measure gold. Which means, when you dispense justice, please do not think that approximation is permissible. While dispensing justice, no kind of approximation can be allowed by you if you have to be a great judge and a great king. That is what Kamban records. The next is, today, all of you read about the rule of law. You are taught what Thomas Fuller said. If you go back in point of time to the development of the English jurisprudence, you would know that the word rule of law was actually coined by Dicey. You know that it was Dicey who coined the word rule of law. But traditionally, even the English people thought that king was above the law. Rex lex. King was above the rule of law was what the original English jurisprudence thought. But later, over the years, it was turned and they said lex rex. Rule of law is supreme. Thereafter, what happened was, though Plato considered king to be above law, Aristotle did not accept it. Then ultimately, Thomas Fuller was the person whom you know declared that be you ever so high, the law is above you. That was declared by Thomas Fuller. Keep this principle in mind and let us now come back to what Kamban says. In one particular stance, Kamban says, பூவின் மேல் புனிதர்க்கேனும் அறத்தினது இறுதி வாழ்நாட்கு இறுதி அஃது உறுதி என்ப. பூவின் மேல் புனிதர்க்கேனும், பூவின் மேல் புனிதர் means Lord Brahma who created this world he is supposed to be on a lotus, sitting on a lotus flower. Puvin mel punidar. He is the creator of the whole world. But look at what Kamban says. Puvin mel punidar kenum arathinadu irudi. The end of Dharma is even the end of Brahma. Puvin mel punidar kenum arathinadu irudi. Valnatku irudi. Be you ever so high, the law is above you. Thomas Fuller told the common man, the king. Kamban told this even to the creator of the world, namely Lord Brahma. That was how. Then today, we talk about tax remissions. We talk about remission of sentences. When unauthorized centenary celebrations were, when unauthorized birth centenary was declared, a year-long celebration was conducted, the government of Tamil Nadu ordered the remission of sentences of many of the prisoners and let them out. This is permissible by the Constitution and by the Code of Criminal Procedure. The power for the government to order the remission of sentences, for the governor to order the remission of sentences, is recognized by the Constitution of a free democratic country. But look at what Kamban does at a time when people had not known about democracy. Kamban lived at a time when there was monarchy. But he talks about tax exemption, and a tax lawyer is here, he must know that he talks about tax exemption and the remission of sentences. You know, the King Dasharatha did not have children for a very, very long period of time. Therefore, after performing Putrakameshti Yaga, his 3 wives conceive. Then 4 children are born. The moment the news of the birth of all the 4 children are carried to Lord Dasharatha, King Dasharatha, the immediate reaction of the king was this. Irai tavirndiduga, par, pandu or yel, நிதி நிறை தரு சாலை தாழ் நீக்கி யாவையும் முறை கெட வறியவர் முகந்து கொள்க என அரை பறை என்றனன் அரசர் கோமகன். இறை தவிர்ந்திடுக பார் பாண்டு ஓர் ஏழ். The meaning is people who have to pay the small kings who are supposed to pay kappam, tax, please tell them that they need not pay tax for 7 years. Whoever has been captured by us during war and imprisoned in our kingdom, please release all of them. Let us celebrate the birth of a prince for the country, not the child for a king. Look at the importance. Dasharatha did not celebrate the birth of children for an individual. He celebrated the birth of a prince for the country because those were the people who placed public interest and national interest above their personal interest. That is one. Then the next chapter is about, I have also written about how today we talk about power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is something which has been recognized by all civilizations. The moment Kaikeyi said Rama should be banished into the forest for 14 years, Lakshmana gets angry. Lakshmana says, I will kill Kaikeyi. Immediately, Rama actually consoles him. While consoling him, Rama tells Lakshmana, don't get angry. After all, Kaikeyi has done some favor to us. When Lakshmana asks, what is the favor that they have done? Rama says, every seat of power is associated with crime. Therefore, by preventing my ascent to the throne, Kaigeyi has prevented me from performing anything wrong. I should thank Kaigeyi, is what Rama says. That is picturized by Kamban in 2 places. He says, பின் குற்றம் மன்னும் பயக்கும் அரசு என்றால் பேணேன் முன் கொற்ற மன்னவன் முடி கொள்க என கொள்ள முண்டது என் குற்றம் மன்னோ. Every seat of power is associated with crime. That is what Rama declares, not only in this place, at a later, at a subsequent point of time after the war is over. Therefore, the concept that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts is not something new for the Indians. It will be very interesting for you to know that Kamban also talks about law and order and lathi charge. After Rama wins the war over Ravana, Anjaneya goes to Sita and all of them start for their journey back to Ayodhya. They take the Pushpaka Vimana. There is a huge debate as to whether there could have been aeronautics in those days. I do not know whether there was actually an aeroplane or not. But Ramayana records the fact that there was a Pushpaka Vimana into which Lord Rama, Lakshmana, Sita and everybody else got into. It appears from what the poet describes that the size of that Pushpaka Vimana depended upon the number of people who boarded it. The size, it was not a 14-seater Dornier aircraft. It was not a 48-seated ATR aircraft or a 150-seat Airbus. Pushpaka Vimana was a specially made aircraft which can grow in size depending upon the number of people who got into it. How we wish we have such kind of aircraft these days. When all of them attempted to get into that aircraft, there was some scuffle. The Rakshasis who were guarding the Ashokavana and the monkeys who had fought a valiant battle wanted to see how Sita looked like. Therefore, they attempt to get near the aircraft. There was a scramble. Immediately, the CIS of police constables started lathi charging them. CIS in the sense, the CIS of those days. You will have to import. I would like you to have some kind of imagination while you think about all these things. Then, when Rama hears some noises, he summons Vibhishana and asks him what happened. Vibhishana says that there was a scramble for space. People wanted to get near Sita. Both Rakshasis as well as monkeys were fighting and they were trying to get near. So it was, everything was, there was complete chaos. Therefore, my people had to resort to lathi charge. This is what Vibhishana says. Just see this verse. அருங்குல கற்பினுக்கு அணியை அண்மினார் மருங்கு பின் முன்செல வழியின்றி என்னலாய் நெருங்கினர் நெருங்குழி நிருதர் ஓச்சலால். Nirudar Vachalal. The meaning of this phrase is they wielded their sticks. So that was nothing but Latichar. Karungadal Murakena Piranda Kambalai, Nirudar Vachalal. There was a Lathi charge to disperse the crowd. Look at Rama's reaction. Today, wherever VIPs go, there is a barricade beyond which you can't reach the VIPs. If you try to reach, there is a lathi charge, etc. But what is important is the manner in which that VIP reacts. The Rama could have reacted otherwise, but Rama asks Lakshmana to stop all this. He says, Munivarar Vasagam Ketpurada Mun Nani idal Tuditida Nagaitu Vidanan Tanai Yada Noki நீ தகாத செய்தியோ புனித நூல் கற்று உணர் புந்தியோய். Are you a man learned of the Shastras? Are you entitled to do it? Look at the message. If you are a person who is learned, you are not supposed to do this. And the next verse is very important. He says, if People like these monkeys who have fought the army for me and who are very close to me receive such a treatment at your hands, I wonder what will be the fate of the common man in your country. Parasudai kadavul nemi pannavan பதுமத்து அண்ணல் அரசுடை தெரிவை மாறை இன்றியே அமைவதுண்டோ கரை செயற்கு அரிய தேவர் ஏனையோர் கலந்து காண்பான் விரசுரின் விலக்குவாரோ வேறுளர்க்கு என்கொல். If this is the fate of VIPs who are lathi charged, I wonder what will be the fate of the common man in your country. Look at this reaction. Then there are certain chapters about how an investigation has got to be conducted. There is something very interesting about the principle of mens rea. Today we talk about mens rea. Kamban has spoken about mens rea in one portion. What that portion was, all of you know about the story of Agalikai. Ahalya was actually cursed to become a stone because her husband thought she had an illicit affair on one occasion with Devendra. But when Rama walked over that stone, she comes back alive. The moment she came back alive, Rama asks her husband to forgive her and take her back. When he does that, what Rama says assumes a significance because it has got relevance to the principle of mens rea. This is what Rama says. Anjana vannathan tan adittugal kadava munnam vanjipol idayal munnai vannathal agi nindral nenjinal pizhaipilal. She had not committed a mistake with her wholehearted consent. There was no mens rea in her. நெஞ்சினால் பிழைப்பிலாளை நீ அழைத்திடுக என்ன கஞ்சமா மலரோ நன்ன முனிவனும் கருத்துள் கொண்டான். The husband of that lady understood that it was a mistake committed due to circumstances beyond her control, and she was not inherently, by her nature, she was consciously not guilty of committing a crime. Nenjinal pizhaipilal. This is the most fundamental element of the principle of criminal jurisprudence that has been incorporated. There are many things about the law of evidence. There is one interesting facet about how there could be conflict of laws and how conflict of laws have to be resolved. The manner in which conflict of laws have to be resolved is also spoken about by Kamban. What happens was, Dasaratha makes an announcement on the floor of the assembly. You can, he gathers all his ministers in front of the ministers, in the presence of the ministers, in front of the entire population of the country. Dasaratha makes an announcement that his son Rama will succeed him, he will be coronated. You can take this as something equivalent to an announcement made on the floor of the parliament or announcement made on the floor of the assembly. Then after making this announcement, he goes back. He goes to the harem of Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi uses the two blank checks that had been given by Dasaratha sometime in the past when Sambarasura war was fought. The moment she does that, Dasaratha gets caught in a very peculiar type of situation where he had to either honor the commitment given to Kaikeyi or honor the commitment given on the floor of the assembly. A conflict situation arises. This conflict situation, I am not saying this out of my imagination, this is questioned by Lakshmana himself. Lakshmana asks father, You are the king of the country. As a king of the country, you have made an announcement on the floor of the assembly that Lord Rama will be coronated as the king. Can a king, acting in his capacity as a public servant, retract from the promise given on the floor of the assembly as a private individual in the harem of his wife? That is a question for which Dasaratha does not find an answer. But Rama himself finds an answer. That is where Kamban excels. This question many people ask: can the chief minister of a country, take for instance, a chief minister of a country makes an announcement on the floor of the assembly. He goes home and his wife takes away that promise. What happens? This conflict is sought to be resolved by Kamban in a very, very extraordinary fashion. Two things Kamban does. Kaikeyi tells Dasaratha that tomorrow people may say that you had given me signed blank papers about 10-15 years ago and I have filled up something. All of you know that if somebody gives a blank paper with his or her signature, and if it is filled up at a later point of time, it is possible for the promisee to contend that there was no consensus ad idem. What is important for a contract is the consensus ad idem between two parties. It is possible for people to say that what you filled up was not what I had intended to give you, therefore that is wrong. Kaikeyi is a person of great knowledge. She knew about it, therefore she demands Dasaratha to confirm, Mr. King, you please confirm today that whatever I have filled up in the blank form that you had given me has been filled up lawfully and I was entitled to fill it up. There is a particular verse in Kamba Ramayana where she demands Dasaratha to tell her that Murayin Ujin Petrai Yendu Urai, confirm to the public that I have got it out of my own right and I have not filled up a blank paper. So, after doing this, the conflict between what the king promised to the assembly and what the king promised as an individual to his wife is resolved partly. How partly? What was promised to the wife was earlier in point of time than what was promised to the public in the floor of the assembly. Therefore, a promise can never actually be enforced if it had been preceded by a lawfully enforceable promise given at an earlier point of time. So this is one method of resolution of the conflict. But the conflict did not get resolved at that time because there is always an element of public interest versus private interest. What Kaikeyi had demanded fell within the realm of private interest. What king had promised fell within the realm of public interest. How to resolve that conflict? That conflict gets resolved by Lord Rama. Lord Rama says, all right, who was the beneficiary of the announcement made on the floor of the assembly? I was the beneficiary of the announcement made because I was to get coronated. Here and now, I relinquish whatever was given to me by my father and I am not prepared to take that kingdom. Can the king enforce the promise that he made on the floor of the assembly without my consent? I am not consenting. I am going back to the forest. I am going into the forest. There is a particular verse in Kamban where Rama declares that I do not want to take this kingdom contrary to the promise that my father as an individual had given to my mother. I will not get coronated as a king. Now look at the situation. In law, you may make an an announcement on the floor of the assembly to make somebody the speaker. Take for instance a case where a chief minister says, tomorrow I will make Mr. X as the deputy chief minister. Nevertheless, the statement as having been made on the floor of the assembly is very important. But suppose that person chosen as the deputy chief minister declares that I am not willing to accept that office, can you compel him to accept that office? This is one way of resolving the conflict created by the announcement made on the floor of the assembly and by the promise made to the wife by the king as an individual, and that is what Kamban adopts. This is a very, very the nuance of the law that Kamban evolves. Then let us look at what Kamban does about. There are two areas. One is about diplomatic immunity and another about the status of refugees. You know that today, all of you read in the papers about that lady who was in States where we fought for her diplomacy. She was arrested on a charge of, what is that name? That lady's case gave rise to a lot of debate in the public. But just look at what Kamban says about diplomatic immunity. When Hanuman goes to Lanka, he did not go as a diplomat. He went there. Actually, a diplomat is a person who is supposed to get into another country with a lot of credentials, and the credentials should be accepted. If you see, suppose Mr. Jaishankar is appointed as, today he was formerly the ambassador to US. The moment he is appointed as an ambassador, he must go there and present himself and the credentials, and it should be accepted. Then diplomatic immunity automatically starts operating. But that principle, Kamban adopts at a different level. Hanuman goes to Sri Lanka as an uninvited visitor. He actually encroaches without a passport, without a visa. He enters Sri Lanka. But he claimed, the moment he is arrested and brought before Ravana, he claims himself to be the ambassador of Ravana. There is a very interesting, apart from this Kamban, Arunachala Kavirayar, he composed Ramayanam in very, very ordinary language. There is a very interesting portion. The moment Anjaneya entered Ravana's court hall, Ravana asks him, Yarada Kurange. Immediately, you just see, Ada is something very disrespectful. Since Ravana asked him, Yarada Kurange, Yar can also be understood as R. R is 6. Therefore, Anjaneya gives a reply, Ramasami Duda Nanada, Ade Ravana, Yen Perada, Nanada, Yen Perada, Anumanada. He addresses him with 6 adas. Because he asked Arada Kurange, Anjaneya addresses him with 6 adas. Ramasami Duda Nanada, Ade Ravana, Kelada, Nanada, Yen Per Anumanada. 6 adas he says. Therefore, he was not actually sent as an ambassador. But still, when it comes to the question of punishing Anjaneya for the violations that he made, the first violation that Hanuman made was that of an illegal entry into a country, no respect for immigration laws. He never got any visa or anything from anybody. Not only did he not get gain a lawful entry, after gaining an unlawful entry, whatever he did was also unlawful. He fought, he killed several persons in the kingdom, and he was captured ultimately by Indrajit and brought before Ravana. But when Ravana orders the killing of Hanuman, Vibhishana stands up and says, O Ravana, have you not read in the Shastras that if somebody comes here proclaiming himself to be a diplomat, an ambassador of somebody, are you entitled to kill him? The Shastras say that a person who comes representing another person shall not be killed by a king. He is entitled to that immunity. This is what Kamban has recorded. Today, in a democratic polity, you talk about the diplomatic immunity for persons who come lawfully, but Kamban talked about diplomatic immunity even for illegal immigrants and persons who were self-appointed diplomats, self-appointed ambassadors. Then just have a look at how Kamban has excelled in talking about the law of refugees. All of you know that after the advent of the First World War and the Second World War, the very question of somebody being entitled to some right as a refugee came into existence, was addressed by the United Nations only after it was born in the year 1951. The first ever convention that was passed by the United Nations was the United Nations Convention on the Status of Refugees of the year 1951. All of you know that after the Second World War, the League of Nations United. Then in 1948, we had this Declaration of Human Rights. Thereafter, the convention relating to the status of refugees was passed only in 1951. And look at this interesting fact. Article 33 of the convention relating to the status of refugees, it states that if a person is persecuted in a country of his origin on account of his birth, on account of the race to which he belongs, on account of his religious faith, on account of the social group to which he belongs, on account of the political leanings that he has, then such a person is entitled to protection. This is what Article 33 of the United Nations Convention on the Status of Refugees say. That is only of the year 1951. And in 1987, the United Nations adopted what is known as United Nations Convention against torture and other cruel, inhuman or degrading punishment or treatment of the year 1987. This convention mandates that the states parties who have ratified this convention should ensure that a person who claims refugee status on these parameters shall not be turned away from any of the countries who are member parties to this convention. And who is a refugee? These conventions define who would be eligible for the status of a refugee. There are actually 8 principles evolved in the United Nations Convention. Just see, this convention itself is only about 60 years old, 64 years old, 1951 it comes. I told you, Kamban wrote this Ramayana in the year 9th century. Keep these 8 principles evolved in the 1951 convention on the one hand, and look at what Kamban says. When Vibhishana offers to surrender, Rama convenes a cabinet meeting. In the cabinet meeting, he asks, what is your opinion? Should I accept the surrender of Vibhishana or not? It was not as if Rama did not have the authority to take decisions by himself. As a matter of fact, today you see political parties which are said to be highly democratic, where the executive committee will meet and they will give a blank check to the leader of the party to take decisions on their behalf. The kind of democracy today prevailing in our country is The highest level of democracy where all members will surrender their will to the will of the leaders. There, a person who was entitled to take a unilateral decision. Rama calls for a cabinet meeting. The first person to speak was Sugriva. Sugriva says, Rama, we should not accept the surrender of Vibhishana. The reason is, here is a person who ditched his own brother at the time of a crisis and came to us. The moment he said it, Rama turned towards Lakshmana and laughed. This is what is Kali Yuga. A person who himself is guilty of some crime, he speaks against such a crime. Then the next person to speak was a monkey by name Neelan. There are 8 verses in Kambaramayanam which are extraordinary. Neelan addresses Rama. He says, Rama, I will tell you whatever little I know about whether one should accept the surrender of somebody or not. If you translate that verse into modern language, how we should read as, I will tell you something about the law of status of refugees. That is how you'll have to translate it. The Neelan says, Rama, what are the principles that govern the question as to whether we should accept the surrender of somebody or not? This is what he says. Tam kula கிளைஞரை தருக்கும் போரிடை பொங்கினர் கொற்றவர்க்கு எளியர் போந்தவர் மங்கையர் திறத்தினில் வயிர்த்த சிந்தையர் சிங்கலில் பெரும்பொருள் இழந்து சீரினோர் பேர் அபிமானங்கள் உற்ற பெற்றியோர். It means people who have deferred you on theories of philosophy, on political ideologies. பேர் அபிமானங்கள் உற்ற பெற்றியோர், போரிடை புறங்கொடுத்து அஞ்சி போந்தவர், people who have run away from the battlefield. நேர்வரு தாயத்து நிரப்பினோர், பிறர் சீரிய கிளைஞரை மடியச் செற்றுளோர், அடுத்த நாட்டு அரசியல் உடைய ஆணையால் படுத்தவர் நட்டவர், பகைஞரோடு ஒரு மடக்கொடி பயந்தவர் மைந்தர் ஆயினும் உடன்குலத் தகையவர் நம்முழை வந்து ஓங்கினால். Says, if somebody leaves his property, wife and children, he is a true refugee. Therefore you should not turn him away. தாம் உற எளிவரும் தகைமையார் அலர், நாம் உற வல்லவர் நம்மை நன்னினால், தோம் உற நீங்குதல் துணிவர் ஆதலின், யாமிவன் வரவிற்று என்னொன்று உண்ணுவாம், காலமே நோக்கினும் கற்ற நூல்களின் மூலமே நோக்கினும் முனிந்து போந்தவன் சீலமே நோக்கி யாம் தெரிந்து தேர்தற்கு ஏலமே என்றெடுத்து என கூறினான். If you translate all these 8 verses said by Neelan to Rama, the definition of who a refugee is under the 1951 convention gets actually amplified but that does not get abridged. If a person could conceive in the 9th century that there could be a time in the history of humanity where people will be confronted with this question as to who a refugee could be, this definition given by Kamban as to who a refugee is much larger in amplitude and scope than the definition in the United Nations Convention. There are, in fact, there is a very interesting chapter I have written on prohibition. In the whole of the Ramayana, 3 kingdoms are presented. First is the kingdom of Ayodhya. The second is the kingdom of Kishkinda. The third is the kingdom of Ravana, Lanka. Somehow or the other, the poet has shown people belonging to all these 3 kingdoms habitual or at least social drinkers. But nevertheless, at one place, Sugriva says, summarizes in 8 verses what are the evils of drinking. In fact, I have summarized the evils of drinking as portrayed by Sugriva in his. Sugriva himself was an addict. He was an addict to such an extent. He was addicted both to power and liquor. The moment he got power in his hands, he started consuming, and he was actually consumed. He only started consuming, and he was ultimately consumed. He speaks about prohibition, the evils of the habit of drinking liquor, etc. Therefore, there are several things that this great wealth, the treasure of Kamban contains. There are certain other, in fact, equality. We today talk about equality. In one particular chapter, Kamban speaks about equality which you would never have seen. King Janaka organizes the wedding of Lord Rama. People arrive in large numbers for the wedding. The entire kingdom of Ayodhya is in Mithila for the wedding. The manner in which King Janaka treated the guests is something amazing. Kamban records that Janaka treated his prospective son-in-law Rama on par with the poorest of the man and fed them with a feast which was equal for all of them. In fact, in weddings, there is nothing wrong in treating the prospective son-in-law one shade better than the others. Nobody can really claim an equality of status with the son-in-law. The only day on which he is glorified is that day. Ultimately to be condemned, I don't know. But don't ask me whether it's my personal experience. But the point is that if King Janaka could treat his son-in-law and the common man out in the streets during the time of the feast, the kind of equality that was prevailing is something amazing. Today, you see, after we attained democracy, it took 50 years for us to enact a law for the upliftment of the physically challenged. Our enactment, Persons with Physical Disabilities Act, came in the year 1995. Persons with Disabilities Equal Opportunities Act came in the year 1995, after about 50 years of our attaining the independence. But look at Kamban. In the 9th century, Kamban talks about employment opportunities for the physically challenged. In two places. In Ravana's kingdom, he says, means a cabinet meeting, an emergency meeting of the National Security Council meeting. He talks about National Security Council. After Lord Rama and the entire army of monkeys arrive on the seashore to wage a war against him, Ravana convenes a National Security Council meeting. Who are the persons who stood guard outside the venue of the National Security Council? Was not these black cat commandos. Very interesting. Kamban says people who could not hear. Because in a Security Council meeting, what is important is persons who carry water for you. He should not hear anything. Otherwise, it will not be National Security Council meeting. It will be completely insecure council meeting. Whatever you speak will immediately go out. It will be like our full court meetings. The moment you talk something, it goes outside. Therefore, he says people who were well built, who were warriors, but who could not hear, people who could not, persons who are deaf, persons who are dumb, but persons who were great warriors stood on guard, he says. Therefore, Ravana had employed persons with disabilities as guards whenever a Security Council meeting was convened. More than that, persons who are the ladies who stood guard in Ashokavana, people who were hunchback, people who were dwarfs, people who had all kinds of deformities in their body were made personal guards for Sita. And all of them were treated alike is what Kamban says. Today, for providing employment opportunities, you had taken 50 years to enact a law, but Kamban says in the kingdom of Ravana, that was always there, even in the 9th century. Therefore, what I actually wanted to tell you was that there is a great treasure. Unfortunately, whatever is given to us without any effort, we do not understand its value. Suppose your parents provide you the best of education without making you realize the amount of sacrifice that they have done, it comes to you without any kind of value. This is true of what we have inherited from our ancestors. India is the only country which has inherited a great past. But Indians are the only people who have not realized its value. This is the paradox of our history. This is the paradox of our time. Therefore, I thank the Chancellor and the Vice Chancellor and the Dean for giving me this opportunity to open up a debate, to give you an interest into what our ancient literature actually contains, the vast amount of treasure hidden inside our literature. With these few words, I take leave of you. Thank you very much.
Sir, I must, on behalf of the entire audience present here, thank you wholeheartedly for the double-barreled, bilingual, intellectual ammunition that has just made its maiden explosion at the School of Law. Mindful of the fact that, as you rightly pointed out, that this is a treasure that cannot be just unraveled in a singular lecture of this type. So I only request you to treat this as the first of a series of explosions. Sir, I should also thank you for also agreeing to also distribute the Shastra University's Merit Scholarship. This we give it every year, an annual Merit Scholarship totally around 80 lakh rupees. For students who are placed in the Dean's List, the top 2% of the students, to whom we refund 20% of the tuition fee. And for the remaining students placed between 3% to 10%, we refund 10% of the tuition fee. The list of students runs to around 900, but we have selected 9 students across the 3 years, the top 3 across the 3 years, to personally collect the Dean's List certificate and the scholarship, and the rest will be handed over Professor Avishekar Raju, who will arrange for distribution to the other students. Rajyavardhan Reddy, final year mechanical engineering. Rajyavardhan Reddy. Manish Kumar Reddy, third year civil engineering. Manish Kumar Reddy, followed by Lanki Palla Harsha, third year mechanical engineering. Abhinesh, third year civil engineering. Venkadalakshmi Sri Lalita, second year computer science. Anusha, second year ECE. Anusha, second year ECE. Vaishnavi, second year ECE. The remaining checks and certificates totaling to around 80 lakhs, I request Dr. Avishekar Raju, the head of the law school, to collect on behalf of all the students, and later you can arrange for, yeah, you can receive it from justice. Just thought I will also share this information for the benefit of the audience and other invitees here, that after this function is over, we have also arranged for another small event on the other side, where we are going to participate with the local school here in Thirumalai Samudram, where to around 200 students we will be giving them the school uniform as well as plates and tumblers for the day-to-day use inside the school as part of our a responsibility to help the small primary school ecosystem in a village in which we are operating. We also thank you, sir, for accepting to also hand over those to those students there. Sir, we have time to take 2 quick questions if you are okay with. Yeah. So let me moderate the session so that I am aware of the time and I will ration time accordingly. I know you are students and there are faculty members. Quick, short question. No statement of fact, not your opinion, just your question. You can raise your hand only from students. Let's encourage students. Okay, I'll have you as the last so that you're just there. Any other student? You can ask a question. And I will not conclude the meeting without a question from the other side there. Kiran. Yeah.
Good morning, Your Lordship.
Yes.
Your Lordship, you had stated that Yama was entirely impartial while giving his judgments. But the very same Yama, when trying to take a very youngster who was a Shiva devotee, the devotee hugged the linga. And when on that day when he launched the thread, it also touched the linga and all the gods came to the rescue of the devotee. So does this reflect the limitation of the independence of justice? That quite often, every time, whenever the justice dispensing system works, powers outside its scope come to interrupt it and impede it.
See, that is why we always want an independent judiciary. In fact, we would like to have a judiciary completely independent of even godly intervention. But I don't think it's possible, because without godly intervention, I could not have been a judge. Without godly intervention, you could not have been a student. Therefore, the breaking point is there shall be no intervention from the king. There shall be no intervention from the God is something which I can't tell God. And there is also something behind it. See, there are only 3 occasions on which, interestingly, let us have I'm not trying to shy away that question with by a humor. See, there are at least 3 occasions. The first is this Markandeya. Markandeya was the person whose life was supposed to be taken away at the age of 16, and Shiva intervened. Second is Satyavan Savitri. The third was Nachiketas. All these 3 cases are completely out of the blue to remind us of the most fundamental question in philosophy as to how far an individual has got free will and how far fate will actually help you overcome, or fate will restrict your free will. That's a much larger question. In fact, if we have a different discussion, I can tell you the question of fate versus free will. Whether free will operates and up to what level, where fate intervenes, where God intervenes, whether God is entitled to strike out all your past karmas, or he is simply a person standing and watching whatever is happening according to your own karma. It's a very difficult question. That is how it's an extraordinary situation. It's not actually an intervention by God into dispensation of justice. Though in common parlance we understand death to be the ultimate judgment, that is not the judgment. After what happens after death is the actual punishment. Yes.
Any other question from this side of the audience, from the girls? Otherwise, I'll conclude with Amit's question. He has one. Okay.
Generally, girls are very compassionate. They don't ask questions. And
okay, Amit, you can. Yeah.
So there's been a controversy raging for some time now about the 1000 Ramayanas. A.K. Ramanujan's famous essay in this. There's so many Ramayanas, and you were also saying that Kamban is indeed unparalleled. So, in fact, even in this Ahalya, Valmiki says that Kautuvala, that there was some kind of mental element actually, and there is a difference. So, what are there many truths about the many Ramayanas? Your take on that?
see, that's a difficult question to answer. What happened was, first of all, there are people who believe that Ramayana is something that actually happened. Rama was a legendary figure. He was an incarnation. He actually walked on this earth, is what many people believe. But even people for whom we have the greatest of respects have said that this all came out of poet's imagination. For instance, poet Bharati, he was not a non-believer. Bharatiyar was a believer in God. He was a believer in Shastras. But he said, Kadalinai thavum kurangum, ven kanalidai pirandador sevvidal pennum, Vadamalai thalndadanale terkil vandu saman seyyum kuttai muniyum, Nadiyinulle muzhigipoi and the Nagar magalai Nagar ulagil vor Pambin magalai vidiyurave manam seida thiral vimanum karpanai என்பது கண்டோம். Nothing but imagination is what Bharati said about the whole story. We really do not know whether Lord Rama walked on this earth, but we want to believe it. Some people don't want to believe it. Kamban said, Nadayin Nindru Uyarnayagan, a person who lived like an ordinary human being and lifted himself up. The difference between Valmiki Ramayanam and Kamba Ramayanam is, in Valmiki, Rama declared Atmanam Manusham Manye Ramam Dasaratatmajam. I was only truth. The truth, see, the difficulty in Buddhist, in Jain philosophy, you have something very interesting called Anekatvavada. That Anekantavada in Jain philosophy is what actually gave you the story of 4 blind men trying to describe the elephant. The philosophy of Jains is that the truth is something greater than what one individual can actually conceive of in whole. Every person is able to conceive some portion of the truth, but not the whole truth. Therefore, Valmiki conceives a portion of the truth, Kamban conceives another portion of the truth. 1000 creators of Ramayana conceive different parts of that very same truth. When you conceive different parts of the very same truth, you arrive at different conclusions. Why do we have conflicting judgments in courts? Assuming that 2 individuals who are very honest, who are equally, who are of equal mental caliber, equal intellectual caliber, can look at the same thing in 2 different perspectives. Where does the truth lie? Truth is, that is why you see what you must understand, the greatness of Mahatma Gandhi was, when people said God is truth, Mahatma Gandhi said, no, there are people who denounce God. Let us say truth is God. There can't be anybody who denounces truth. Therefore, in all these 1000 Ramayanas, there is an element of truth, but none of them contain the whole truth. That is the answer.
Thank you very much, sir. In fact, we could take this for a very, very lengthy interactive session, but for want of time, we are just concluding. But nevertheless, as I had requested, please consider this as your first visit as part of a series of lecture on this topic and also other topics that are aligned towards.
In fact, it's always a pleasure meeting students. I always tell, whenever I go to colleges, universities and meet students, I tell them I am happy for 2 reasons, to be amidst students. Whenever you are in the midst of students, you feel you are young. You have not grown. You have not grown in age. Number 2 is, we judges always have old solutions even to new problems. But the students have new solutions even to old problems. Yeah,
that's well said. Now Dr. N. Seshatri, Director of the Distance Education, to please propose the word of thanks.
மேலையிலே விட்டிருக்கின்ற மெல்லிய பூங்காற்றுக்களே, சொல்லத் தரம் உண்டு என்றால் கேட்கவும் தரம் உண்டு என்று கீழே அமர்ந்திருக்கின்ற சான்றோர் பெருமக்களே, உங்கள் அனைவருக்கும் என்னுடைய வணக்கம். எங்கள் துணைவேந்தரின் பெயரில் உள்ள ராமனையும் அவர் வணங்கும் கடவுளான முருகனுடைய பெயரை சுப்பிரமணியத்தையும் சேர்த்து வைத்திருக்கின்ற உங்களை நாங்கள் வாழ்த்தாமல் எப்படி இருக்க முடியும்? நீங்கள் எடுத்துக்கொண்ட தலைப்பு ராமனை பற்றி. ராமன் எப்பொழுதுமே பல மொழிகளுக்கும் பாலமாக இருந்தவன். வட சொற்களம்தான் தென் சொல் எல்லை காண்பான் என்று ராமனை பற்றி கம்பன் நன்றாகவே எடுத்து சொல்கின்றான். அவன் கருப்பை பற்றி நீங்கள் சொன்னீர்கள். வெய்யோனுடைய கண்மேனியில் விரிசோதியில் மறைவான், பொய்யோ எனும் இடையாளும் இடையானுளும் போனான், ஐயோ மரகதமோ மறிகடலோ ஐயோ இவன் வடிவென்பது ஒரு அளவுடையான் என்று ராமனை பற்றி பேசுகின்ற போதெல்லாம் கண்ணன் தன்னையே மறக்கின்றான். கைவண்ணம் அங்கு கண்டேன், கால் வண்ணம் இங்கு கண்டேன் என்பதற்கெல்லாம் இங்கே சான்றுகள் உண்டா? நீங்கள் சொன்னீர்கள் ஷேக்ஸ்பியர் 22 பாத்திர படைப்புகளை படைத்து அழியா புகழ் பெற்றான் என்று சொல்வார்கள். ஆனால் கம்பன் 22ஐயும் தாண்டி பல 22 படைப்புகளை படைத்திருக்கிறார் என்று நான் சொல்லவில்லை, ஆசா ஞானசம்பந்தம் அவர்கள் சொல்லி இருக்கின்றார்கள். அது மட்டுமல்ல, அவனுடைய இயாகோவுக்கு எந்த அளவும் குறையில்லாதபடி கைகேயை படைத்திருக்கிறான். கேரக்டரைசேஷன் ஆஃப் கைகேயி இஸ் சூப்பர் போஸ். தீயவை யாவினும் சிறந்த தீயால். ஷேக்ஸ்பியர் மோஸ்ட் அன்கைண்டஸ்ட் கட்டு தான் சொன்னானே ஒழிய அவனை சாப்பிட்டுட்டான் நம்ம கம்பன். தீயவை யாவினும் சிறந்த தீயால். இந்த மாதிரி எக்ஸ்பிரஷன்ஸ் எங்கேயா பார்க்க முடியும்? அந்த கைகேயை பத்தி சொல்ற பொழுது சிற்றவைதான் சொற்கொண்ட சீராமா என்று ஆழ்வார் விரும்புக. அன்னைக்கே கைகேயி நல்லவ, அவ இல்லைன்னா ராமனுக்கு எதிராக இவ்வளவு பெருமை. ராமனுக்கு பெருமை இன்னும் சொல்லுவாங்க, நிறைய சொல்லுவாங்க. உங்களுக்கு தெரியாது இல்ல, 60 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னாடி நாகப்பட்டினம் கோர்ட்ல ஒரு ஜட்ஜு ஜடாயுனுடைய டையிங் டிக்ளரேஷனை அப்படியே எடுத்துக்கொண்ட மாதிரி இந்த டிக்ளரேஷனை எடுத்துக்கொண்டு ஒரு ஜட்ஜ்மெண்டே கொடுத்துருக்காரு நாகப்பட்டினம் அந்த கோர்ட்ல. ராமாயணத்தை மேற்கொண்டு லக்ஷ்மணனை பத்தி சொன்னீங்க. லக்ஷ்மணன் இருக்கானே, அதை பற்றி ரொம்ப சுருக்கமா சொல்ல வேண்டியிருக்குது. இன்னைக்கு அருமையா சொல்ல இருக்கேன். அரக்கரன், அமரரியன், அந்தனர் தாமன், வேதத்தின் கொள்கை தாமன், செருக்கினர் வலியராகி நெறி நின்றார் சிதைவராகி இருக்கும் இது என்ன இவ்வுலகை எரிமலாவோ. அன்னைக்கே நெருப்பு வைன்னு சொல்றான். அவன் எல்லாத்துக்கும் வைக்கல, இலங்கைக்கு மட்டும் நெருப்பு வச்சான். ஆனா அதுவும் நல்ல நெருப்பா போச்சு. ராவணனை பற்றி சொல்கின்ற பொழுது அவன் ஆன்டி ஹீரோ, ஆல்சர் ஈகோ. ராவன் வின்னர்னா ராவணன் ரன்னர். ராவணனால்தான் ராமனுக்கு பெருமை என்று சொல்லிக்க பல செய்திகள் இருக்கின்றன. வாலி வகையில ஒரு பெரிய விஷயத்தை சொல்லிருக்காரு. உங்க தர்மம் வேற, எங்க தர்மம் வேற. நாங்க விலங்குகள்லாம் எப்படியோ இருப்போம், இங்கெல்லாம் காமன் கோடு கிடையாது அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி வாலி சொன்ன பொழுது, டேய் ஒழுங்கா நல்லபடியா வாழ்ந்தான்னு சொன்னா விலங்கு கூட மனுஷன் தான் சொல்லிட்டு காமன் கோடை பத்தி ராமன் சொன்னதாக வாலி வரைபடத்துல கம்பன் சொல்லி இருக்கின்றார். அதனால இன்னும் சொல்லப்பட நிறைய பல சொற்கள் சொன்னீங்களே. மன்னவன் பணி அன்று எனக்கு தெரிய எங்க அவன் சொல்லியிருக்க மாட்டான். மன்னவன் பணி அன்று ஆகி நும்பணி மறுப்பனும். நீ என்ன வளர்த்தவளாச்சே, ராமனை பயன்பெயர்க்கு இடருண்டோல்ல கையை சொன்னா. அவள மைண்ட மாத்தினவ யாரு? மந்தரை. அவ பிளானிங் லெவல், இவ எக்ஸிகியூஷன் லெவல். மந்திர பிளான் போட்டு கொடுத்தா, ஏதோ எக்ஸிக்யூட் பண்ணிட்டா. அந்த கைகை கேரக்டர் சினிமாவில் நடிக்கிறதுக்கு ஆளே கிடைக்காம தவிச்ச பொழுது ஜீவலட்சுமியை தான் கொண்டு வந்து போட்டாங்க. நான் கைகையை பார்த்ததில்லை, ஆனா ஜீவலட்சுமி நடிப்பை பார்த்துட்டு பாதங்கள் இவை என்ன படிமங்கள் எப்படியோ அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கும் என்று சொல்லி இப்படி ஒரு அருமையான ஒரு பொழிவை ராமாயணத்தில் இன்னும் தெரியுமா? ராமாயணம் கம்பராமாயணம் ஒரு பஸ்ஸே பார்த்தீங்க. அவங்க வேணுங்கிறத அவங்க எடுத்துக்கலாம். பத்திரிகாரன் போனீங்கன்னா அவன் சொல்றான் அயோத்தியில் பரபரப்பு, ராமன் முடிச்சு விடுவானா, தசரதன் மூர்ச்சை, கைகை மௌனம், தசரதர் பேச மறுப்பு, இப்படி போயிட்டு இருக்கான். எங்க சந்துருவ கேளுங்க, பொதுவுடைமை இருக்கிற மாதிரி வேறு எதுவுமே இல்லைன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. ஆகவே நாங்கள் இலக்கியவாதிகள் ராமாயணத்தை பேசுறதை விட உங்களை மாதிரி சட்டம் படித்தவங்க பேசுகிற பொழுது அதுக்கு ஒரு பரிமாணம் கிடைக்கிறது என்று சொல்லி இப்படி ஒரு அருமையான வாய்ப்பிலே எங்கள் துணைவேந்தர் எப்படின்னு சொல்லப்போனா இது எப்படின்னு சொல்ல முடியுமா, சிக்கல் சண்முக சுந்தரம் நாட்டை புரிஞ்சு ராகம் வாய்ச்சா எப்படி இருக்குமோ அப்படி இருக்கும் என்று சொல்லி வாய்ப்பளித்து நன்றி கூறி அங்கே நினைக்கிறேன்.
I now request the gathering to stand up for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा, तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष माहे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।